Kansas P. Omaha's ESPN Radio. It's time for the Front Stretch, brought to you by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Online at joeskarting.com.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning on the Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Booking prices and hours, it's all located online, joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. You can give them a call today, 712-256-5278. Guys, we've got a great show lined up for everybody today. Just once, this is kind of a bit of an off-the-subject comment, but I always, you're kids and watching the late night and see Conan and Leno and all those guys come out, and they say, we got a great show lined up for you. Just once I wanted them to walk out and go, this show kind of sucks. Don't bother listening tonight.
Sounds like something David Letterman would say.
Yeah. If it wasn't for our Turn 3 interview, I would say this show kind of sucked today. But we do have a good show lined up for you.
Yes, we do.
In Turn 4, we're going to talk with Andrew Kaczynski for the infield report. Andrew, I assume we're going to break down the Chase mix-up.
Yeah.
How everything lined up as far as the winners and the losers as far as Chicagoland was concerned, and what we expect to see in the next 9 races.
You bet.
With New Hampshire just about to kick off in a couple of hours. In Turn 3, we're going to sit down with the two-timer himself, the USMTS national champion, Ryan Gustin. We're going to sit down and talk to him. He has gone back-to-back USMTS national championships, so we're going to talk to him about his career, what got him started, how he got that nickname, the Reaper, all sorts of stuff. You're not going to want to miss that. That is in Turn 3. Turn 2, it's been kind of a busy week as far as stories go, so it was pretty easy to pick the Fast 5. The only issue we had was, do we go with this story or do we go with that story? There was quite a bit to pick from, but plenty to talk about in Turn 2 for the Fast 5. Before we get to all of that, let's break down what happened at Chicagoland, and this is Turn 1, brought to you by the Auto Connection in Lincoln, 21st and P Street. Preventative maintenance is important. I'm looking at you, bud. Making sure your vehicle and especially your transmission. Well, you really can't help it when it's a Dodge, but make sure your engine and your transmission and everything is up to snuff and working great. I know I've got a slight bit issue with my Ranger, and we're going to go and take a look at it after work today. Maybe I'll send it on down to Kevin and all the guys down at Auto Connection.
There you go.
21st and P Street in Lincoln. They're going to take care of you. Preventative maintenance will save you money in the long run. Give them a call today, 402-477-8200. Again, they're located in Lincoln at 21st and P Street. They've got this pretty cool little Nebraska Cornhusker kind of tribute area.
Like a shrine.
We were sitting there waiting for him to finish up with the customer when we talked to him at the beginning of the season about becoming on board and being a sponsor with us, and I had a great time just sitting there looking at that. I mean, if I'm waiting for my car to get serviced, that's worth the time and the money. I mean,
oh, yeah.
To heck with watching the TV, which everybody does. You can sit here and look at all this memorabilia they've collected over the years. Chicagoland. A little bit of...
a mess.
Yeah.
I'd say a mix-up.
Not the most entertaining of races. It seemed to be the same issue we've seen on a lot of these mile-and-a-half tracks, that once you got out in clean air, you kind of checked out. And it was just green flag running. One driver that did have an issue, Jeff Gordon, gets a bad start to the chase. This was the absolute last thing he needed, was a DNF. And I for the life of me, I cannot remember. Did he just plain cut down a tire?
No, a throttle stuck.
That's right, a throttle stuck.
Oh, that's a racer's worst nightmare.
The guy's the throttle just stuck, and he smashed around. And he was running good.
Yeah, he was 4th at the time, I believe.
I think he finished up there, yeah.
The thing is, you've heard these conversations a lot, and especially after Dale Earnhardt Sr. passed away, that it's those grazes of the wall that are the most painful ones. And I listened to the replay during the broadcast of that race. He had the mic cued when he hit the wall, and you heard him go, ugh. And you don't hear that from racers. And you could see him after they pulled it down to the pits. There was a quick clip of him getting out and walking to the front where he was limping. That was a heck of a hit. I mean, you're going down into Chicago. I believe walking into those turns at Chicagoland, you're doing about $1.75.
I'd say a little less than that, maybe.
$1.65.
Yeah.
Now, when your throttle hangs...
Uh-oh, this is going to hurt.
yeah. And that's exactly what happened. I appreciate you correcting me on that, Andrew. But, it was a heck of a hit for Gordon. Not only literally, but figuratively, as far as the race went. He was done for the night. He tried to come out and get a couple of laps in, but just couldn't finish the race. And he ends up finishing, 35th?
Yes.
And only gains 9 points on the chase, walked into Chicagoland with 2,000 points. He walks out with 2,009. He's now sitting 47 points behind our current points leader. And it's a big difference. It's 21 points back to 11 before he can even start to smell 11th place. Let me ask you guys right off the bat, is Jeff Gordon's chase done already?
Yeah. His championship is, but I think he could still squeeze in the top 5. I think he's good. I think he's fast, but I mean, he's had that bad luck all season, and I really thought they got rid of it all, but it didn't.
See, I think if anybody in the top 5 has a couple bad weeks, I think he could be a top 5, maybe a top 3. I agree with Andrew. I think his championship is done. But when the smoke settles and the dust clears, you want to feel bad for Jeff, but at the same time you don't, because here's a guy, we didn't think he was even going to make the chase.
Yeah.
And he battled back, raced his way back into the chase, and he proved why he's a championship caliber, driver.
Yep.
And it's just bad luck like this that's happening. I mean, how many times does your throttle stick?
Yeah, it happens occasionally.
But not as often as you would think.
Right. And I think that's probably...
I'm still incredibly proud of the guy.
Well, and he's going to have to rattle off 4 or 5 wins to even get back in the hunt. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if he was in the top 5 starting the chase, if he was sitting there in 4th or 3rd and had this, then he's got a little bit more of an opportunity to maintain and to bounce back. But because he walked in 12th, because he walked in with no bonus points whatsoever, it's unfortunate to say I think his season's done. I would love more than anything for him to prove us wrong.
With what happened at Chicagoland, now I'm seeing Jeff Gordon as, and I don't know what you think, Andrew, but I'm seeing Jeff as a 7th, 8th place finisher in the chase.
Now,
I still think he's going to squeeze around 5th. I think he's going to still run good, but I mean, there's going to be 4 cars that's not going to have a DNF in the chase, and those are the guys that's going to be up front.
Yep.
Well, Johnson gets the pole, and he's got an absolutely dominant car. I mean, it was fast the second they rolled it off the hauler.
Shocker.
It was fast during all the practice laps. It was the fastest qualifying. He got himself the pole, and he proved it, leading himself 172 laps. Absolutely dominant car, but he doesn't get the win.
He didn't lead the most important lap, as we say.
Right, and he didn't lead there at the end. What I want to ask you guys is, did Brad Keselowski fool Jimmy Johnson? Because here was the scenario, was that Johnson was out there leading, and Brad was kind of sitting about 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds behind him for a majority of that second to last green flag run. And every time that Brad would kind of get closer, Johnson would be able to move away a little bit farther. And Johnson and Knaus did not make much of a change, if they made any at all. I don't remember them making a change to that car when they came in for their final green flag stop. Keselowski, on the other hand, did make a little bit of a change. He comes out and absolutely puts a whooping on the field. Did Brad Keselowski sit and hang back and save something just to fool that 48 team into thinking that they had a winnable car?
I don't think so. I think it came down to pit strategy, because Keselowski stayed out later than what Jimmy Johnson did when Jimmy Johnson came in for the pit stop. Keselowski stayed out later, and then he pitted later, and I think that really helped him.
It was just, 1 lap or 2 laps was the difference between the two? It wasn't like he stayed out for 10. And let's face it, at Chicagoland, when you got to have good tires, make a lot of difference. And if he's out there for more than probably 5 laps, he's going to be losing a lot of time when he does come in, and because Johnson's out there on fresh tires, and so he's going to be losing that time to Johnson.
I think he was being a little conservative, but I think it was 50-50, 50% conservative driving until the end, and then he opened it up, and then the other 50% was the pit strategy with his crew chief, which I thought was a brilliant call.
Yep.
I just love the fact that Andrew's favorite driver won the race.
I think definitely he's definitely a Blue Deuce fan.
The
right
only
now.
thing I like is his number. That's it. Put a big old X on the side
Put
of
an
the
X
two,
next,
and it'll be a good-looking car.
Well, Brad does come home with the victory. He also comes out with the points lead. First time in his career that he has led the points in that Blue Deuce. So, and actually in his career, not only in the Blue Deuce, but the first time he has ever led the points in the Sprint Cup Series. So a good time to start leading it when you're in the playoffs. Johnson comes home second, even though he leads the most laps. He is second in the points. So a couple of drivers had very good days. Casey Kane had a great day. Not necessarily he did have a good day. He came in with a top 5 finish. Kyle Busch had a good day. Is that something that Kyle Busch is kind of sitting there going, God, if only I'd have made the chase?
I think he'll win this. I think he could win this week.
You think
Kyle
so?
Busch is not going to let up, I don't think at all.
No.
Drivers that kind of struggled, Kevin Harvick and Greg Biffle, the whole Roush Fenway organization seemed to have an issue that weekend. Carl Edwards finished 19th. Matt Kenseth finished 18th, and Greg Biffle finished 13th. They just didn't seem to have much under those Roush Yates engines.
No, from what I've seen in the past, Chicagoland has either been friend or foe with the Roush Yates engines, in this year. It was just,
Well, it hasn't been much of friends to him because I believe they have never won at Chicago.
No, but I was looking overall, not so much at wins, but top fives, top tens. Right. They've had some good, respectable runs there, but this track in particular just isn't really a big fan of Hendrick Motorsport,
of Roush.
Or Roush Motorsports.
That's catching you up on as far as what happened at Chicago. Land Turn 2, we're going to break down the Fast Five. It's 5 stories that are dominating the NASCAR world. We'll be right back on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
This is the front stretch on AM 590, brought to you by Joe's Karting, online at joeskarting.com.
Welcome back to the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting here on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio. Joe's Karting is located at 2121 South 32nd Street. And, guys, honestly, I get calls at the track. 2121 South 32nd Street, where's that at? It's like, you just look for Quaker Steak and Lube, the AMC movie theaters. We're right next door to that, and I'm an old farm boy. I'm not too smart upstairs, so I go by the landmarks, and, that's what I typically tend to do, and it's never failed me yet. So.
I found it because one night I was over at the AMC theaters catching a movie with one of my girlfriends, and, this was like 6 years ago you guys opened? 5 years ago you guys opened?
No, 3 years.
No.
Yep.
You guys been open longer than that.
August 8th, 2009 is when we opened. But anyways.
All right, Lucy and...
Yep.
Yeah. So anyways, hey, if you want to do some outings, right now we're starting to see a really big uptick in our outings. And I was telling Rich the other day, my boss, in the past, I've seen, 4 or 5 people want to, try to cram in last minute. Hey, we want to do something this Saturday, or this upcoming Sunday. Now I'm seeing outings clear out for 60 days up until November. And it's really cool. But right now, give me a call at 712-256-5278 or email me at buddyj@joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. And
Buddy J.
Yeah.
Bubba J.
Yeah.
I got to get that sound clip.
But anyways, give me an email and, I can set something up. So we just had some big rapper guy in there the other night. Now, really cool guy.
They all think they're big.
Yeah.
He's making a left turn.
He hit the wall. Drinking the beer.
This is the Fast Five stories that are dominating the NASCAR world. We've been talking about it for a couple of weeks. The fear that Penny Enterprises would not be coming back to NASCAR in 2013 if they were unable to sign with Ford. Well, it now seems that's all going to go by the wayside. They are going to re-sign with Ford. They are expected to run a full season with both cars and having both Ambrose and Almirola in their cars. So both of those drivers will be retained in their respective cars. No idea as far as the crew chiefs are going to go because they did make that swap beginning with the chase. Mike Ford went over and started crew chiefing for Marcus Ambrose, and Ambrose's crew chief, it's slipping my mind who he was, but he went over and started crew chiefing for Eric Almirola. So no idea if those crew chief changes and crew changes are going to stay the same, but great news to see Richard Petty Motorsports still in the NASCAR circuit, even though Dodge is leaving like we predicted and Bud didn't.
Okay. You had to throw that out there.
Dodges.
Yeah. Okay.
Did yours make it to the show okay today?
Yes.
I don't know if it did it
blow anything else up?
I'm just worried that
No, nothing else blew up. It made it to the show. But not having Richard Petty in motorsports and NASCAR, that's just not right. I mean, they may not run up front week in and week out, but they are an institution of NASCAR, so it's great to see them back.
It's a legendary name. I mean, it's the same thing as Dodge. I mean, it's going to stink to lose one of the major American manufacturers to an American sport. But in 2013, we're going to be without Dodges in every NASCAR circuit.
Just because they're all working on my truck.
That's right. They're spending too much money fixing your truck.
But not to make light of the situation. Back what was it, a few weeks ago, Marcus ran pretty good, and Richard said, that he was going to talk to Dodge about renewing the contract, and it didn't go over so well.
Well, he made that comment that
I would like to have been there when this got done, because I'd like to see what was said in that.
Well, as far as I know, the deal's not done. As far as Wednesday when we recorded, the deal's not done, but they are expected to sign in the next couple of days. So by the time this airs, they could have signed, or they could wait till after New Hampshire this later today, being Sunday, to sign. So, it all depends. But he did make that comment, and we did talk about it after the Watkins Glen race, that they were down in victory lane. He had the contract in his pocket ready to go. And there was some Ford representatives down there, and he said, how about that? Marcos and I won. And he kind of, I don't know if he did it on purpose, left out Ford. And I think that ruffled some feathers.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
So it's great to see them back on good terms and working this out, and then seeing those guys into the 2013 season. So what's number 2, bud?
Oh, number 2, beep, 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 beep. Breaking news, JR Motorsports parts ways with Tony Eury Sr. and Jr. and brings in Ryan Pemberton. This week it has been tough for the Eury family, as Eury Sr. was removed from his role as competition director and pretty much was, excused from Senior from the company. Shortly after that, Eury Jr. was removed as crew chief of the 7 car and released from Junior Motorsports. And then on Tuesday, it was announced that Pemberton, formerly of Tommy Baldwin Racing, had joined Junior Motorsports, and is expected to take a similar role as Eury Sr. had, although he has not been formally named competition director.
Let me ask you,
wow.
You guys both are pretty into. I mean, the racing community on the dirt track level, it's a family sport. Your dad, buddy, is your crew chief. Andrew, your dad is your car owner. It's got to complicate things that, when you talk about these dirt tracks, there's got to be a professional atmosphere to it, but yet when you mix family in, there is a personal atmosphere that comes with it. How hard, and I know you'd probably never do, but there has been hard conversations as far as you and your dad have been concerned, where you've had to tell him you're not coming to the races this week because it's too dang hot in the pits. How hard is it to do that?
Well, and I would assume that Andrew's got to feel this way with his dad. Now, my dad and Andrew's dad, they live totally different lifestyles, and that's not, here or there on either one of them parts. My dad's 70 years old, and he struggles with the heat and humidity. The hardest thing, I sit comfortably when I tell my dad, I don't want you to go into the races. It's too hot or it's too cold. What I have the hardest part in is, now that I'm 40 years old, I've been doing it long enough that I've gotten to learn a lot of different things, and I don't necessarily, Dad will tell me, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And I'm like, no, I sit in the car. This is what I want my car to do. I'm going to do it my way. And Dad's like, well, good God, kid, I'm only 80 or 70 years old, and I've been, around this forever, longer than you've been alive. And I was like, I understand that. So, yeah, you want to keep some form of professionalism there, but it is really tough, because sometimes you think you're walking on pins and needles, and at times it makes me feel like, okay, if my dad and I kind of get into it, I'm just going to let him have a freebie. Here, Dad, here's my rear, and go ahead and chew it out. I'll let you because you're Dad. Who am I to tell a 70-year-old, how to fix something or do something when he's been doing it longer than me? What's it like with you and Andrew? You have a Hall of Famer dad. That's got to be 10 times more nerve-wracking at times.
Have you ever seen Orange County Choppers?
Oh, God. Yeah.
Mikey and Mikey? Yeah, that's me and my dad.
You mean Paul and Paul?
There you go.
Yeah, Paul Tuttle, Junior, Senior, and Junior.
Yeah, we go at it like he don't usually come to the garage because we don't get nothing done, because we more or less are going to pound our heads in each other.
I've actually, and Andrew could not describe that better. I have been in Andrew's shop with his dad walking around. I would be walking on pins and needles. And your dad's a great guy. Don't get me wrong. Your dad's a great guy, well-accomplished racer, but had my dad been, one of the NASCAR Hall of Famer, top 25 best drivers ever in a late model, I'd be like, okay, you did this back in the day, but this is today, and I'm driving today, not you. But I have to give it to you. You have a lot of gall.
What you're saying is, it takes a lot to stand up to not just Joe because it's your dad, but because he's he's been successful.
I mean, when he can drive the wheels off anything, so it's hard to try to talk to somebody because he goes, well, you just got to do this and it'll work. And it'll work for him because he can just drive anything. It don't matter. He can drive junk and he'll still be fast. Me, I have to be correctly set up right. Track has to be exactly the way I need it to be, and then I'll be good. That's
so it doesn't, and I can only imagine the conversation that Junior Motorsports had with
that's a
with
big,
the Uris. I mean,
they've been around for a long time,
and they've been with Junior for a long time.
Yeah.
So that had to have been an uncomfortable situation. But on to number 3. What's number 3, Andrew?
Brian Vickers gets the ride in the 55 today with a new sponsor. Brian Vickers is making his 7th of 8 scheduled appearance tonight in the Michael Waltrip 55 car. The new sponsor, Jet Edge Incorporated, which is the primary sponsor for today's race. And
the Jet Edge sponsor is their primary sponsor on that car.
Yes.
Okay.
And you know what? I kind of like it. I like Vickers in the 55 car. I think Mark Martin still is the best driver in it, but Vickers needs a ride somewhere. I think you didn't like, Dan, you don't like Vickers as much, but I always kind of have. I thought that Red Bull team screwed him up because I thought he wasn't bad at Hendricks.
I lost a lot of faith in him and got very irritated with him after that. Was it Martinsville or I can't remember what short track race it was last year. You know what? It was Richmond last year, and he just kept running into people.
Oh, I remember that.
He brought out like 4 or 5 cautions, and it was.
Oh, dear Lord! So you just described a short track racing?
No, it was blatant stuff. He went out there with a destroyed car to go and get revenge on somebody else. He took out Kenseth. I think he took out Clint Boyer. I mean, it was ridiculous. And I lost a lot of respect for him at that time, but he's gained a lot more. Not that he's trying to gain my respect back, but he's gained a lot more respect back since then because of the way he's driven in that 55. I think Michael Waltrip needs to sign into a full-time deal next year in that 55.
I agree.
As much as I don't want to see Mark Martin gone, I think he needs to be signed to the full-time deal. Sponsors are returning for the 17 in 2013. Roush Fenway Racing announced this week that they expect Best Buy, Fifth Third Bank, and Zest to not only return as sponsors for the 17, but they're going to be increasing their commitments with the 17 and with Roush Fenway Racing. Example: Best Buy will be on the 17 for 12 races. They will also increase their commitment with the 99 team and be on for 4 races, which is 3 more than they were for this year. Team president Stephen Newmark said that the 17 is about 70% sponsored for 2013, and they hope that if everything keeps going the way it's going, that RFR's goal is to return to 4 race teams in 2014. So after seeing a lot of sponsorships kind of go by the wayside as far as Roush Fenway is concerned, it's good to see them kind of bouncing back finally.
And the number 17 is who again?
It's going to be Ricky Stenhouse.
Ricky Stenhouse.
Okay, I want to bring up this conversation, and we're kind of getting short on time, so we need to keep it brief, but all year long, we've been talking about Matt not being able to get sponsorship in that 17. And then it was announced, and then it was leaked that he'd be leaving, and then finally it was announced that he is leaving, he's going to Joe Gibbs Racing, and that Ricky Stenhouse was going to take over in the 17 when he leaves for 2013. All of a sudden, the sponsorship's starting to happen. Is there what's going on? Did Roush not push for that, or is there sponsorship issues as far as it comes with Matt Kenseth?
No, I don't think it's that. Well, I think it's that. I think the reason why they're staying is I think Best Buy wants to be on the 99 car more than anything, and you see that's why it's on there for 4 races and on 12 for the 17. I think it's really, we want to be on the 99 car, and I think Roush kind of talked it into, you can be on the 99 car for 4 races, and then you can be on my 17 for the other ones. I really think that's how it's going to be, because I think they're going to use Carl Edwards a lot in a lot of commercials and everything like that. Everybody wants Carl, so if Carl says you have to be on the 17 to have me, I think that kind of what they did. I would agree with that. To do with
you think so?
Ricky being in the car or anything like that. It's just,
I tell you what, dirt track fans or dirt track racers, you may think that these Cup boys are just kind of out there racing on their talent, but there is a lot to be said for as far as Carl Edwards goes the extra mile for all of his sponsors, and he is not having an issue being sponsored. And we hear this a lot in the dirt track community. Sponsorship is extremely tough to come by.
Very tough.
Yeah, but the other thing and I am not saying that this is a major role, but I think another factor is Stenhouse is a good-looking young guy. Kenseth is actually getting up there, and he's not an ugly guy, but he's not exactly what you would consider,
I think you kind of look like Kenseth a little bit. Honestly. I'm not saying you're ugly.
I'm going to slap you.
Buddy, I think what you're getting to there is that Stenhouse is the young and up-and-comer.
Yes.
And it's kind of a changing of the guard. Best Buy is not the best fit for Matt Kenseth. Something like AARP would be better.
I wouldn't say AARP.
That's kind of an extreme example, and you got him. And I think that's the reason why Home Depot was always unhappy with Joey Logano, is because Logano.
Does he really fit their demographic?
I don't think so at all.
Works on how.
I don't think so at all. I think Tony Stewart was a great sponsor for them, even though he gave him headaches quite a bit, and they fined him a lot.
Tony Stewart looks like a man's man, somebody that would actually go work on his house, work on his barn, that would buy the product and support
Joey
Home
doesn't
Depot.
seem like a guy who will get his hands dirty. But I think Matt has that aura to him, that stigma to him.
Matt is in the upper age bracket of the NASCAR drivers.
Wrapping up the Fast Five, AJ Allmendinger has been reinstated to NASCAR. Buddy, you want to take this?
After completing his road to recovery, Dinger was reinstated this week by NASCAR. After AJ was suspended by NASCAR for failing a random drug test, he was then released by Penske Racing. Roger Penske said last week that he would explore the possibility of AJ taking over one of his open wheel rides for 2013. This is great. Here's a boss that lets you go for, a drug, substance abuse, which is common in everyday blue-collar, 40-hour-a-week working jobs. But AJ does the responsible thing, gets treated, and now his former employer comes back and says, you know what, you've done this, you've done the up and up, here's an open wheel ride. And we've talked about Dinger being back in the open wheel, in the past.
And more than likely that he's going to get his shot in open wheel rather than in the NASCAR circuit. I don't think he's going to be back in NASCAR.
He was better in the open wheel than he was in the NASCAR.
Yeah, he had a bit of a tough go of it in the NASCAR circuit, but
great to see him back, regardless, though.
Absolutely. So that's the Fast Five stories that are dominating the NASCAR world. The flagman's giving us the signal of have to go. Just around the corner, we're going to talk with Ryan Gustin,
the
Reaper himself, back-to-back USMTS championships for Ryan, and we'll talk to him about that and so much more just around the corner. This is The Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
You're listening to The Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio. Brought to you by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Online at joeskarting.com.
Welcome back to The Front Stretch. This is Turn 3, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, located online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. Get to Joe's today. Get yourself some fast-paced, white-knuckle racing, where the only speed restriction is how fast you are.
Which you ain't.
No, not at all. Joined in the studio, or joined on the phone right now by the Reaper, driver of the 19R, and the two-time USMTS national champion, Ryan Gustin. Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's talk about that. Back-to-back championships in the USMTS Nationals. What's it like to be a two-timer now?
Oh, it's pretty cool. They're a tough deal to get your name on, that's for sure. There's been very many champions in all the years USMTS has been going, so it's definitely a big accomplishment.
In the beginning, give us some history on Ryan Gustin. Where did you start? How did you get into racing, and what led up to you being in the USMTS and being the two-timer, as we know?
Oh, well, I started racing go-karts. I was 3 years old, and raced them up until I was 12. And after, I think, I raced B-mods for 5 years, I think. I got into the USMTS mod and been doing that ever since.
Wow, there is hope. I could go from a B mod to a USMTS mod. Thanks, Ryan. You just shut my confidence up.
I think you're just lacking some speed, which Ryan does not lack at all.
No.
Ryan, what got you interested in racing?
Oh, I don't know. My whole family's done it, I guess. I'm actually a third-generation racer from the Gustin and de France side of the family, so I guess that's what got me into it.
Talking with Ryan Gustin, driver the number 19 modified out of the USMTS National Series. Ryan, why did you choose number 19? Is there any significance behind it?
Oh, my dad was always 9 or 19, and I don't know. I just always have been 19. I've always been 19, and we just put the R on it when we started running USMTS. There's some other cars out there that were 19. I guess my number's been 19R for the past 4 years.
Back in the day when you started racing, now you raced, quote me if I'm wrong on this, but or correct me if I'm wrong on this, I should say, but now you race for Gressel Racing, is that right?
Yep.
Now, to kind of take us through the process as a sport mod, B mod racer myself, or anybody else out there that was in your shoes that got that jump to the USMTS, tell us how all that came about and how that works.
Oh, well, straight from being to a USMTS A mod is definitely a big jump, When you're going from guys that, hardly raced before to racing with guys like, Kelly Shyrock, Jason Hughes, and all the big name guys like that. You definitely got to give them room, just stay out of the way at first. They give you a layover flag, make sure you get out of the way because they're usually racing hard up front. Just, you got to earn their respect, that's for sure. You can't go on, just be out of control and run into a bunch of stuff. You just got to not try to drive over your head for the first year or two and get used to racing with them, film out or whatnot, and, just keep your nose clean. I started racing for Dressel at the beginning of 2010, and the year before that time, we ran second in the national championship. I was driving for Jason Aldinger and my dad. I drove for them up until 2010 when I started running the USMTS deal.
Now, being a USMTS driver, Dan and I talk a lot on the front stretch with NASCAR and sponsorship dollars and just how important that is. When you start getting into the higher levels of dirt track racing, whether it be the World of Outlaw late model sprint cars or even the USMTS A mods, you guys aren't your weekly running IMCA style drivers, and I'm not knocking IMCA drivers by no means, but when you get into the upper echelons of modified drivers, there's only one thing out there, the USMTS, and it is what it is. It's the best of the best. So
it's definitely tough. When you go race with, these guys that are going and racing night after night after night, it just puts you so far ahead of someone that only races on a Friday or a Saturday. All the experience you get as far as driving the race car, things you learn, to do to the race car, a certain track condition here or there, wherever you're at. It's very important to race a lot, if you're going to just come in here and try to win races.
How big of a role does sponsorship dollars have in that at your level, like, as in NASCAR at the Sprint Cup level?
It definitely helps, if you're out here running up and down the road, with one car and one or two motors or whatever, if you break a motor or hurt a car, you're done. But as far as points racing goes and stuff like that, you definitely got to have somebody good behind you like Wrestle Racing, keep you going. Your stuff never gets worn out. You always got newer stuff on the race car. That's what a lot of people don't realize. They just think, we can go race this thing for a whole season and not have to worry about nothing. Well, even coming all the way down and just replacing little things like Hymens, it makes a big difference.
We've talked about you winning back-to-back national championships and what it's like to race in the USMTS series. Let's talk a little bit about Ryan outside of racing. What is it that kind of trips your trigger when you get off the track and out from behind the car?
Oh, I don't know, I guess. I really don't have any time to do anything besides race, really. But, we race close to 100 nights a year, and basically on the road, probably I suppose race 100 nights for 100 away from home.
Now, back when you've got this nickname, and it's quite possibly the coolest nickname I've ever seen or heard in a race, the Reaper. I can only imagine that came about because you were killing the competitions, such as the Reaper name, means. How did that come about for you and your race team?
Yeah, the car that I drove before I went to Wrestle Racing had a Reaper on it. My crew chief, Joe Joyce-Janowski, just kind of said the Reaper one night or something like that, and I guess it's just stuck ever since.
If you were to compare your driving style to a NASCAR driver, who would you think that you drive similar to? Would it be someone like Mark Martin where you're very respectful out there, or would it be someone like Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, or Brad Keselowski that you'll give them their space, but when they push you, you'll push back?
Oh, I don't. To be honest with you guys, I really don't hardly watch NASCAR that much.
Oh. Well,
when we're out on the road racing and stuff, it's hard to watch or whatever. We usually race a lot of Sundays, but I don't know. I suppose Tony Stewart's a pretty good driver. Usually fairly clean unless you go run into him or something. It'll dump you, I guess. But that's kind of how you got to be no matter what.
So we'll give it a loose answer of Tony Stewart. That sound good?
That'll work.
Talk a little bit about your favorite win. You've had plenty of them throughout your career. You've been winning since you were 17 years old. So is there a win that stands above the rest of them and you can kind of puff your chest out a little bit more about?
The World Dirt Track Championships we won there here in July here at Deer Creek Speedway, $25,000 to win, 75 laps. It was definitely nerve-wracking. We really didn't think that I didn't think we had a good enough car to win when we were rolling out there. But, man, I think we changed one thing right for the A main, and that thing took off and we were fast.
25,000 to make my chest stand out pretty big. I mean, that's more than I make in 3 years.
As far as the USMTS is concerned, your guys' season's kind of wrapping up. You've got one more race left to go, and then there's the Texas Winter Nationals. Are you going to head down there in November?
Yeah, we're going to go down there to Texas, finish out the year. I think there's probably some decent paying shows around here or down around the shop in between Fall Jamboree here and there. We'll probably hit a couple of those and possibly out to Las Cruces and Tucson, too.
You know, with all the success that you've had in your, 2 or 3 short years with the USMTS and winning your back-to-back national championships, Ryan, what does the future look like for you? Have you been scouted by any NASCAR teams, maybe a certain guy by the name of Penske looking for a driver, maybe Childress looking for somebody? Have you actually had any eyes, looking at you lately?
Oh, we talked to an ARCA team at one point, and it was going to cost like $1.2 million for a year. I just don't have anybody that'll spend that kind of money to get me in there. I'd say I'm pretty content with the dirt track stuff. Ultimately, I'd like to race dirt late model, something like that would be a lot of fun, I would think.
Talk about stepping up to the late model series. What about sprints? Any ideas about going to sprints?
Oh, I don't know. Those things look pretty dangerous.
Bud and I's exact sentiments.
When they flip hard.
Yeah.
You've got to have cojones the size of Texas and maybe, might be the brightest individual to drive one of them things, I've always said. Make sure both of them.
Ryan, how can fans track you down? Do you have a Facebook page, a Twitter, a fan page they can keep track of where you're racing at each week?
We got a Facebook fan page. I think it's Ryan Gustin Racing or something like that, I guess.
A Google search will take care of everything, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, best of luck to you for the rest of the year, and for 2013, we sure glad to see you won the back-to-back championships. What about next year? You going to make it a three-peat?
I sure hope so. We'll see what we can do. We're going to this weekend, and hopefully shut them down and win everything out. That'd be awesome.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Ryan. We really appreciate it. That was Ryan Gustin, the Reaper, driver of the 19R USMTS modified race car. Ryan, thank you so much for taking your time, and best of luck to you the rest of the season.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Good guy.
He really, if you ever watch him, he is, I liked your question, how would you compare him to a Sprint Cup driver? I really like the fact that you compared him to a Mark Martin. He's not as old as Mark Martin, but he is a very smooth.
Not even close to Mark Martin.
No, but
excuse me. I'm going to get in trouble now. He's not as wise.
He's not as wise as Mark Martin, but he's got that swagger, and he races you very, very clean, and he's one of the nicest guys you could ever meet on the tour. In the USMTS, they're all great guys. Don't get me wrong. They're all great guys, but Ryan Gustin is one of the most down-to-earth, aw shucks, almost doesn't know what to say at times if you ask him a question. He's just a very, very humble, down-to-earth guy. And what better of a driver mentality can you have than something like that?
Yeah, he's just 21 years old. He's been winning since he was 17. I mean, the stat pages are just insane. This year, he's raced 27 races for the National Championship Series, 10 wins, 20 top fives, and 25 top tens. That was one question I didn't get to. What happened? He couldn't make it a perfect 10 for 10 in the top 10s?
I'm telling you.
I mean, seriously.
I mean, good Lord.
It's time to retire when you can't do that.
Yeah, but you know what? I like the fact that Ryan brought up one, when we asked him about possibly going, to the next level, asphalt racing. Did you hear the number that he threw out? 1.2 million. That's million.
Yeah. I mean, listen, this is no secret. I'm being Captain Obvious out here when I say that this is an expensive sport. Whether you're down racing go-karts or you're up racing ARCA and Sprint Cup, it's a massively expensive sport to be a part of, and we're just simply in a culture now where teams are saying, okay, you may be talented, but you got to bring sponsorship with.
He's made decent amount of money on the tour this year, and people could look at the amount and go, wow, I want to be a USMTS driver. These guys are running $30,000, $40,000 motors. That's 1/3 of what he's made in a year. But you take, he's driving from Minnesota down to Texas, out in Las Vegas, out in Indiana or Illinois or wherever the USMTS goes. I mean, these guys travel the entire nation. So, just because you see a big number right there, man, I mean,
what you're not seeing is how much it costs to get to that big number.
Yeah.
Exactly. Turn 4 just around the corner. We're going to talk with Andrew Kaziski in the infield report. Andrew will join us back in the studio, and we'll talk about the chase, what the complexion is like.
There's a chase?
There's a little bit of a chase going on right now. The chase for the Sprint Cup Championship.
Oh, that chase.
That one. Chicagoland's over with. We'll see how the landscape of the chase got tossy-turned, because, it did. We'll be right back. This is The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
This is The Front Stretch on AM 590, brought to you by Joe's Karting, online at joeskarting.com.
Well, we're getting the signal of 1 to go as we head into Turn 4, salvaged by Kaziski Auto Parts. You're looking for quality used parts to get your car or truck back on the road? Give an experienced salesperson at Kaziski Auto Parts a call today. You can even get Andrew on the phone. Just call 731-4592. You can also stop by 50th and I Street. Do you have Dodge transmissions?
Oh, yeah, we have plenty of
Do you
them.
have one? Okay.
Bud just doesn't like to spend the money to get them.
Well, he just prefers to Band-Aid rather than fix the thing, which, I mean, honestly, the best way to fix a Dodge is just to get a Ford.
Just get rid of it, yeah.
You know what Ford stands for, right?
It doesn't stand for having a broke-down transmission.
Or everything else.
Kaziski Auto Parts, 731-4592. Stop by 50th and I Street. Premium recycled parts. That's what Team PRP stands for. And they're going to give you a quality used part with a lifetime warranty on it. So Kaziski Auto Parts is where you need to get to today and get yourself back up on the road without spending that pretty penny. Andrew, let's talk about the chase. There's a lot of mix-up that happened and a lot of things that went on as far as the chase was concerned after Sunday at Chicagoland. Take it away.
Okay, top 12. In 12th place, Jeff Gordon, after his terrible deficit. I think he'd have been up there close to the top. He probably would have been about 7th right now if he didn't fall out. Matt Kenseth led all season, back down to 11th now. Kevin Harvick, 10th place. It's about where Kevin Harvick's going to be until he could pop a win off. Martin Truex Jr.'s 9th. Greg Biffle, 8th. Junebug, 7th place. Clint Boyer, 6th.
I can't believe you just called him that.
Why?
That's
I like that. I like the name.
My daughters call him the bug-eyed dummy.
Well, now you just got the biggest hatred in the world. You made fun of the most popular NASCAR driver.
The lumberjack. I mean, in 5th place, it's
lumberjack.
Hey, real quick, has anybody seen that letter to myself that he did with CBS News?
No.
If you get an opportunity, go to YouTube and search for it. CBS News does this letter to myself. It's where Junior wrote a letter to a 16-year-old version of himself, as if he was able to send it back in time and kind of talk about what he's going to expect over his lifetime. And that was fantastic. I mean, it's only like a 5-minute clip, so it doesn't take long, but like Junior essentially wrote a letter as himself to his 16-year-old version to kind of give him an idea of what he was expecting. And there's quite a bit of insight as far as how that guy's brain works. And if you get an opportunity, you got to watch it. It's fantastic. I'll even post it up on the Facebook page so you guys can see it.
I'll have to check it out.
So there you go.
5th place, my man. He's going to sneak up there. Casey Kane, 5th. 4th place, Denny Hamlin. 3rd place, Tony Stewart.
My man.
There you go,
my
Dan's man.
There. My man's up there.
2nd place is Jimmy Johnson. And in 1st, my second man, Horseface Keselowski.
Horseface.
Really? That's where we're going to keep it at.
We'll just leave it at that. Send all the hate mail.
No, there ain't no hate mail.
To Andrew, not Dan or Bud. Andrew at the Front Stretch.
At Kaziski Auto Parts, 50th and High Street.
Give me a call. We can talk about him anytime you want.
Let's talk about that, Chase, as far as let's kind of break down the top 5. I'm not surprised who's sitting in the top 5. I think everybody that's up there is very deserving of it. You're talking Brad Keselowski, who is leading for the first time in his career in the points, wins at Chicagoland, gets himself his 4th win on the season. Jimmy Johnson had an absolutely dominant car, but just fell a little bit short. In fact, 1 position short. He sits in 2nd. Not an insurmountable amount. I mean, for Johnson, I mean, seriously, he overcame, what did he start the season? 40th in points?
Yep.
41st in points because he wrecked on lap 2. So, and he came all the way back. Now, it's a long season, and that's a team that can do it, but no deficit as far as I'm concerned until he is mathematically eliminated is enough to get Johnson out of the picture.
I tell you what, the best battle right here in the top 12 that I'm seeing, hands down, is 4 through 6. You got Denny Hamlin 4th, Casey Kane 5th, Clint Boyer 6th. All 3 are tied 15 points out of the points lead. Now, I'm thinking Clint Boyer is going to surpass Casey Kane and Denny Hamlin. I see Keselowski, Johnson, Stewart, Boyer followed by Earnhardt Harvick. I see Hamlin and Kane falling down there a little bit. I don't think they're going to be at the very bottom of the 12, but I see Clint Boyer finishing higher than those two. I like that points battle right there.
I really like Kane. I think Kane's going to be. Gosh, for the life of me, I can't remember who I picked. I picked Stewart, Keselowski, and then
I think you had Gordon.
Did I have Gordon?
Yes, you had Gordon.
Okay, so that was my top three, but I think Casey Kane has got an opportunity. Now that Gordon's out of it, I think Kane will jump into my top three.
I've had the Kane wagon since about week 2. I like him. I like the top 3. The top 3 right now have been the most aggressive drivers all year, and they always are about that same time. I wish Kyle Busch could be in it to be right there with him. Denny Hamlin's been driving tough as well. I think Kane's just going to take talent instead of aggressiveness again, but Tony Stewart, you can't count that guy out at all. Him and Jimmy Johnson, those two are like, you can't stand racing with because they can just beat you at any time they want.
You know, Denny Hamlin had a rough day at Chicago, and there is these forever drawing the connection between Darian Grubb now crew chiefing for Denny Hamlin. So any win that Tony and Darian got last year, you got to wonder if this is going to carry over. And this is one of those instances where Tony was actually able to finish better than Denny, even though Denny's got more wins on the season. So finishing 16th as far as Denny was concerned, had a bit of a quiet and a rough day.
He did.
You know, with what I'm looking at right here, I'm listening to you guys talking. I'm looking at the sheet right here. Keselowski, Johnson, Stewart, top 3. You know what I see right there? You see a young gun versus the old school long-time champions. Here's guys, you know, between the 3 of them, or between the second, you know, between Johnson and Stewart.
Man, I tell you what, you have had a rough time counting today.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Just a rough day. He was sitting there telling us today, talking to me today. He goes, you know, you, me, and Andrew, both of us should go do something. I'm like, there's 3. You just said 3 people. How did you get that? But anyway, sorry. You've had such a rough time today with the whole counting.
Between Johnson and Stewart, we're talking 6-7 championships, and Keselowski has yet to win one. Do you guys seriously think that Keselowski right now, being as young, he is cocky, he is arrogant, do you think that's going to fuel him moving forward, or do you think he's going to take a step back and look at Jimmy Johnson, Tony Stewart, and how they conduct themselves in their cars and their teams and try to emulate what they are?
Not at all. I think Keselowski's got an arrogance to him that he doesn't think he needs to be looking at how, and I don't mean arrogance in a negative way. I think he's got a confidence and an arrogance way that he doesn't need to look at Tony Stewart and Jimmy Johnson and go, how did they do it? I think he sits there in the car and goes, you know what?
I'm the best.
Yeah. I'm the best. And let's be frank, as much as it kind of rubs people the wrong way, that's kind of the attitude you need to have. And I think that's the reason why Denny Hamlin lost the championship a couple of years ago, was because he didn't have that swagger. He was a very humble, quiet guy that doesn't talk trash. He just has a good time, and he's a great race car driver. But the difference between Brad and Denny is Brad's got that swagger. He's got that arrogance and that abundance of confidence.
And I believe Keselowski, deep down inside, I believe, and I'm not saying this because I just don't like him as a driver. I think he would wreck Johnson to win. I really do. I believe if they got into it and they were side by side and they rubbed a little bit, he'd sure as heck take him out right with it.
I don't think there's a single person in this field week in and week out that he wouldn't wreck. And that's not to say he's an aggressive driver. It's that he's a bad driver or he's just overly aggressive. It's just that's his way. I mean,
he's a Busch brother.
Yeah.
He really is.
He might be their third cousin twice removed.
Let's talk about Harvick. Kevin Harvick, who's had kind of a fairly quiet season, sitting back there in 10th place. We talked about it earlier in the show. Jeff Gordon in 12th, 47 points out of the lead. He's essentially out of winning the championship, we think.
I don't know,
Matt
24
Kenseth,
points. You can
not
make
24,
that up.
47.
Gordon.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Harvick.
No, I'm talking about Gordon. Now, Matt Kenseth, 26 points out of the lead. Kevin Harvick, 24 points out of the lead. Is their mulligan over with, essentially? Do they really need to start racking up the top fives and a couple of wins?
But anything's possible in any one of these upcoming chase races. You got Keselowski, Johnson, Stewart. Those 3 there, if they finish outside the top 10 or they wreck or something like that, all of a sudden, you're not going to see a 3 to an 8-point split. You're going to see they're going to be almost bunched up again. I mean, I don't think their mulligans are over. I think they still got a shot.
I ain't worried about honestly, I still think Kenseth's going to sneak up there. I think Truex is going to go backwards. I think that Roush team had a bad week. Harvick, 4 top 5s, 11 top 10s on the season. I don't even know how he even snuck in to stay in the top 10 all year in the chase, because that's just, like I said, he must have ran 11th or 12th every single week, because I just don't understand how he was so far up there. But he's got to pop something off. But I ain't worried about Kenseth, and I really am not worried about Gordon passing a few cars, because just 1 week. I think half these guys will have a week just like he did. So
with the crew change up with Earnhardt Jr., how detrimental is that to his chase runs right now?
I don't think at all.
No.
That's nationwide versus Cup.
Oh, okay.
But the thing is that it's something he kind of gets distracted with, much like we talked about a couple of weeks ago with Tony Stewart losing Office Depot. Is this one thing that, as the owner, he's got to that's going to kind of weigh on his mind a little bit? Same thing with Junior. How involved is he with Junior Motorsports, and is this something that's going to kind of just ever so slightly pull his attention away?
Yep, and right now the thing with the chase is the chase makes you think like a predator. It brings out that predatory mentality. I mean, everything is so important. I mean, you don't want to be distracted from anything. The other thing I want to notice here in the top 12 in the chase, and I think it's freaking cool, is MWR having their cars up there in the chase.
Well, welcome to the club. We talked about it 2 weeks ago.
Oh, I know, but it's still exciting.
They've been there all year, I think. I don't know if they've even been out.
I know, but
they had a possibility of getting all 3 cars in the chase for a while.
I know,
there.
but how many years have we really seen MWR make a viable statement saying, "Hey, look, guys, we're for real. We're the real deal."
Well, none. This is the first year they've made the chase.
I know,
that's
exciting.
Yeah, we talked about it.
I know.
Welcome to the show. We've been here a while.
I'm just waking up.
Now, I want to applaud a few people this week. A couple of guys are not in the chase, so I don't want to talk about them much. I kind of want to bring this into subject. But Mark Martin, again, finishes 14th. Paul Menard, 15th. Sneak up there. Hornish ran good in 11th. Logano, 7th. Ryan Newman runs 5th, beats Tony Stewart. And that's kind of what I wanted to get at there. What do you think? Tony Stewart, why do you think he goes, all right, buddy, I need that extra point? I don't know why they didn't flip-flop there at the end and say, hey, Stewart, you're going to finish in front of Newman. Newman, you're going to push Stewart. I don't get that.
I think reversing the roles, I don't think Tony would have given up the position, so I don't think he asks Ryan to give up the position. There is only one scenario where I'd have seen Tony giving up the lead. Let's go back to Richmond. And Ryan Newman, had he won that race, he would have made the chase. I think that is the only scenario that that there was a while there that Tony was leading and Ryan was second. I think coming down to the last lap, Tony would have pulled over and let Ryan in because it was more important to get both cars in than for Tony to get the win. But that's such a fine line, and there are so many different scenarios. I mean, you got to wonder about team orders, though, as far as they're concerned. Did Hendrick Motorsports have orders out there for Earnhardt, Kane, and Johnson to help Gordon win the race or at least finish high enough to make the chase? Was there orders from other teams to maybe block somebody to make sure they didn't get into the chase? You know, maybe
sure.
You don't want to sit here and speculate, but maybe there was orders as far as Hendrick was concerned to say, hey, listen, make sure Kyle Busch doesn't finish in front of Jeff so that Jeff can make the chase. You know, you never know with those kinds of situations.
100%.
But I think that the race simply came down to the fact that Ryan had a better car, and Tony's not going to come over the radio and say, well, I own your car, so pull over so I can get one more point.
I think Tony would, if you're driving for Tony Stewart, I think he's going to want you to be a racer first.
Right.
And he's going to want you to run for the gold.
That's going to wrap up the front stretch. Turn 4, salvaged by Kaziski Auto Parts, 50th and I Street. Give them a call today, 731-4592. Guys, next week we're going to sit down and talk with Kyle Burke. Working on getting that wrapped up.
Yeah, get him out of the combine first.
Yeah,
it's a mouthful. Kyle Burke's gonna be hard to understand, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, maybe we'll get him in the studio. Maybe we'll shoot for the moon and see if we can even get him.
He might be the Marquette missile, but man, yeah.
Well, let's not ruin our chances of making fun of the way he talks. So Kyle Burke, we're going to work on getting him for next week. We're also going to break down what happened at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and we're going to preview the AAA 400 at Dover. Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks to Ryan Gustin for sitting down and talking with us. Guys, have a great week. We hope everybody out there listening to us has a great week, and we thank you for listening to us for yet another front stretch here on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.